Welcome to the PDA Society's Q&As about PDA during the coronavirus outbreak. Today we're joined again by our clinical advisor, consultant clinical psychologist, Dr. Judy Eaton, and our inquiry line lead and trustee, Paula Webb. Thanks for joining us again, Judy.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
And also to you, Paula.
Hello, great to be here.
So our question for today relates to life after the coronavirus lockdown. A parent contacted us to say, my 4-year-old has a preliminary diagnosis of autism and we're waiting for full reports, but he definitely fits a PDA profile for lots of things. He is pretty much loving being in isolation, just his parents and him all day, no demands as such. There are small shutdowns and meltdowns, but nothing major. There's loads of advice for coping during the outbreak, but is there advice being prepared for once life resumes? Judy, can we turn to you in the first instance on this one, please?
Yeah, this is another really interesting question, and I'm sure it will resonate with many parents. I mean, for some children with autism, the lack of routine and structure and a kind of a normal pattern to the day will probably have been quite difficult. But what I've heard is that, you know, a number of the children with the PDA profile are actually loving life at the moment. They're having an amazing time. Because, you know, being able to be a free spirit, make choices about when they get up, when they eat, how much screen time they have, you know, not having to go to school, for them will be very liberating. And they will probably, you know, and their anxiety levels will go down, and, you know, they will probably be enjoying it more than any other group potentially, because, you know, they're allowed to be. But obviously the issue arises when real life returns. And I guess part of the problem is that none of us know how that's going to look. I mean, I've seen lots and lots of things online, not just for children with PDA, but for all children, about how a lot of them are going to manage that transition back into school. And I really hope that schools consider this very carefully when they make their plans. Because I think a lot of children, and especially the children with the PDA profile, will need a lot of preparation about transitioning back into school. They might need a number of visits. They might need to start on a part-time timetable and build up to it gradually. I think realistically expecting them all just to trot happily back into school as soon as the doors open is probably not going to happen. I mean, in terms of what parents can do, probably something like, you know, when things are calm, gentle reminders or social stories about what life's going to be like when things go back to normal, which they undoubtedly will eventually. So a social story about going back into school, you know, reminders again if they've got pictures of the school and their friends, and just kind of that slow drip approach to sort of reminding them that there is something that's going to happen at some point in the future. I mean, that would be, I mean, obviously that's going to need the cooperation of schools, and I think parents will need to sort of be quite thoughtful potentially about ensuring that happens. Because I don't think it's just going to be easy. I think a lot of them are going to find it quite hard to make that transition back into normal life, as probably a lot of us will.
Yeah, absolutely. Paula, do you have anything that you can add to that at this stage?
Yes, I'm going to turn the clock back a little bit. So let's think about what we can do now. Now that sounds like, whoa, we don't know when this virus is going to have run its course. We don't know when life is going to become back to normal again. But I think there are things we can do now, some of which Judy has probably already said. You know, we can try to keep some routines in place that our children already comply with, because if we drop all demands and requests and routines, they might find it extremely difficult when it comes time to, you know, put the uniform back on and go to school, you know, even go out the door for some of them. So I would say wherever you can, keep some of their routines going. Don't be afraid to drop, you know, the little ones, little bits and pieces, but on the whole, keep some things going if you can. And that's a big if you can. I realise that. I just feel that anything that you can do now might be a bonus when the time comes to, you know, resume going to school or going into the community. I think one of the other things I would suggest is helping your child to transition or even just move around. One of ours, obviously our PDA, is very prone to rooting himself on the settee with a laptop. And what we're trying to do is trying to keep him just moving into the kitchen or moving into the living room to do a different activity. It might be something very small, but at least we're keeping him moving. And for him, they are transitions. In the 2 weeks that we've been in isolation, he has actually managed to get into the garden once. And that was for about 1.5 minutes. But for us, that was a big achievement. So it depends on the child that you have as to what is a transition, you know, getting them to move around. For some, it might be they can actually get on a bike and go for a bike ride with you. For some, it might be, as Judy suggests, you know, keeping in contact with school. So you might casually drive past school on the way to the supermarket, just to make them aware of school. Or even email the school and ask them to send your child a postcard or an email or something, you know, to keep in contact with them. So that our children don't forget that there is going to be a time where things go back to normal. So they would be the things that I'd say at the moment. When the time comes, that's an even bigger step. And I think schools are going to have to give our children time to transition either back into school, or parents are going to have to give their home educated children a lot of time and encouragement and negotiation to get back into community and leaving the house. So they'd be my tips.
Absolutely. Judy, anything that you wanted to add to those?
Not that I can think of, no, I'm afraid. No, I think it is very much going to be a case of working collaboratively with the schools, I think, to help them to understand. Well, as I said, I think it will be a lot of children who are struggling with this, not just, you know, our children. So it's just a case of making sure that, you know, as Paula said, the idea of that kind of gradual exposure when we're allowed out again, even practicing the walk to school when we're allowed to, just to keep it in their mind, because they're not going to be that good at imagining what things are like. You know, social imagination is not necessarily going to be their strength. So that sort of tangible drive past the school, making sure they keep in contact with the friends that they can once we're allowed out of this lockdown, are going to be very, very important in keeping that in mind. And so they have a mental picture of it, I think.
I think that's really good advice. They really can't imagine, can they, Judy? We've got to give them those reminders and those experiences of what it was like, you know, before we were all at home.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we're still in, you know, this phase of self-isolation and maybe even lockdown. And I think that the PDA Society will probably come up with more advice in preparing to return to normality. But at the moment, it's about stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and look after your families.
Thank you both very much for that, and hopefully those tips will be helpful. And as Paula said, once we know how and when the current restrictions are going to be lifted, then we'll look at sharing further resources that will be useful when normal life begins to resume. So please join us again for our next of the series of Q&As about PDA during the coronavirus outbreak. And do please get in touch with us via comms2@pdasociety.org.uk if you have a question that you'd like us to answer. Thank you.